Is that not the most intense drone you've ever seen? G'day, Stu here from UAVfutures, and today, well, we're going to be checking out the Aeolus, look, I can't pronounce this thing. It's obvious that drone manufacturers out there are just making drones that I can't pronounce, but today we're going to be checking out this bad boy. That's probably why I say bad boy all the time. I'm going to drop it down below. I'm going to call it the Aeolus. Anyway, it's from Atmospheric Adventures, and they're a fantastic company. They've been around a long time in this hobby. I know they've helped a lot of people out, but what we have here, this is this bad boy. It's a 5-inch racer, and honestly, it looks pretty hardcore. I mean, check that out. Have you ever seen a drone that looks quite so, I don't know, how would you describe that? Put those comments down below. But what we're going to be doing, this is a part, there's 2 parts to this review. In part 1, we're going to be sticking it on the bench, breaking it down, having a look at how the frame comes, why it's important, because it's a lot of TPU mounts and a lot of carbon mounts. It gives you fantastic flexibility on how you want to build your drone. And then in part 2, we're going to take it out, rip it around, and I'm going to show you guys some HD footage and sort of how this thing goes. Anyway, enough rambling. What we should do, let's stick it on the bench and get started. Oh, one other quick thing too, before we get started, a massive shout out to my Patreon supporters. I couldn't do UAVfutures, I couldn't share this message of FPV drone racing and how much fun it is flying around with your friends without my Patreon supporters. So what I've got here, Atmospheric Adventures, hooked us up with another frame, so I'm going to be giving this bad boy away. You've got the carbon version, and I'm also going to be including some TPU, so you've got this bad boy right here that I'm going to be sending out to one of my Patreon supporters. Anyway, enough rambling, let's get started. Alrighty, so here it is on the bench, and straight away, this one's a little bit different because, look, you've got sort of, you notice 2 options here. So you've got your base plate, which is going to be in both of the, I'm just going to call it the Aeolus build because, look, I have no idea how to pronounce that one. It's driving me nuts. I've tried to say it like a million times, but if we look at what we've actually got, we've got sort of 2 sets, so we've got a whole bunch of options over here for TPU and all your printed side of things, and on this side, if you just want to go the hardcore, old school carbon, you've got that as well. Now, a bit of an overview. Look, this is just a 5-inch racer. It's designed to spin 5-inch props, and probably the one part I like about it is how versatile it'll be. So whatever components you've got, if you click on their website, go check it out. There'll be a link down below anyway. You'll see a ton of different options, whether you want to go the TPU mounts, whether you're going to be rocking a split, HD cameras, all that sort of jazz, whether you want to just go pure carbon, you know, everything, the way you want to set it up, it's on the website. So that's pretty cool that we've got a really versatile frame. Now, the way this review is going to work, we're going to go through the components, talk about them a little bit, then we're going to cut to what it looks like when it's all built up, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the design, quality, pros and cons, and all that sort of jazz. So let's jump in and have a look at the actual frame kits themselves. Rightio, so let's jump in, have a look at our first component, the base of our build. Literally and figuratively, this is the base plate, so no matter whether you're building with the TPU or the full carbon side, you know, you're going to need to use this piece anyway. Now, it's 4mm thick, it's designed to run some 5-inch props, and I got to say, it's a one unibody piece. It's pretty robust, you know, and the more I learn about carbon, the more I realize I don't know. And traditionally, a lot of people would claim that they could tell which way the fibers in here were going, but this top layer of carbon, it's purely cosmetic, and that's in all builds. You know, all carbon sheets you see, a lot of the time, you don't know which way the fibers are running unless you break open a frame and actually have a look. So look, I'm not going to be snapping this one in half, but it feels pretty robust nonetheless. Not too much flex in there whatsoever. Now, as far as this base plate goes, there's not too many cutouts, not too much to talk about. You know, they've got a few little holes right here which are going to be used later in our build. This middle one is where your sort of naze board or your flight controller, all that sort of jazz is going to go. These 2 slots, they're for using to hold down some of the other bits of carbon, but I do like there's no unnecessary cutouts or anything like that, and everything you'll notice is nice straight, nice curved lines, which means there shouldn't be any stress points or that sort of jazz if you come down in a crash, so it should spread that load evenly across the frame. Now, keeping things carbon, let's jump over, have a look at some of the other parts, because it's pretty simple. It's not going to take too long whatsoever. So here's the 2 side plates. They're simply going to slide in, I think, around this way actually, so they're simply going to slide in. They're 3mm thick, so you're going to have those bad boys right there. This frame goes together so simply. So that's sort of your main body, I guess, and then all you've really got, this is one part that I really thought was pretty cool. You've got these 2 little pieces. They're 3mm thick, and if you wanted to use a smaller board or something, I like this one. It's actually got those screws in the top if you wanted to screw something down, but all you need to do, put that in the middle. This goes in like this. That's it. You'll screw that into that way, so a screw will go through the inside, a little bolt on the middle, and then that'll be it. It's ready to rock and roll. So that's the core of the frame down. Then towards the back, you've got these 2 little pieces there, 1.5mm thick bits of carbon. There's 2 little slits at the back that you can slide these in, so we're going to clip those in now. Hopefully this doesn't fall apart on me. So there it is. It was pretty actually easy to put together. I did have to stick my head in front of the camera so I could see where I was going, but that's sort of the frame. I haven't put the screws in or anything like that, but yeah, super simple. I do like if you're going to be going the full carbon route, you've still got the option if you've got dip switches on your VTX or anything like that. But yeah, overall, a very nice little build that feels very, very robust. Now this one's interesting because we've actually got so many options here. I'm going to have a look at some of the TPU options as well. So we're going to put this bad boy to the side. We're going to take this off, sit this over here somewhere. Actually, what I should do, let's stick this on the scales as it is to find out how much does this frame weigh if you're just going to go the carbon route. So the frame itself coming in like that with just the carbon route, it's pretty light considering the amount of carbon you've got in the arms and stuff like that. It's 90 grams. So look, overall, I'm pretty happy with the weight of that frame for a 5-inch racer that doesn't have those ultralight sort of skinny arms. Anyway, what we should do, let's jump over and have a look at some of the TPU options. So we're going to put this bad boy to the side. Rightio, now this is where things start to get interesting. So there's all different styles of pods and canopies. It's all linked down below anyway if you go check them out. But all they simply do, that's it. That is your build. You screw them in like that and that is done. And I used to think, gee, how safe is that going to be? Is that going to be protecting my components? Because in the carbon build, I feel like they're pretty protected. This bad boy, I had my reservations, but I've been talking to Trevor a bit about it. And because they're TPU, I feel like they're pretty tough, but there's also going to be a tiny bit of flex in them. So if you're hitting something really hard, I think it's just going to move just enough to sort of absorb some of that impact and then look after your components. So you can see here, in my opinion, I really like the shape of this one. I think this looks fantastic. It's going to slice through the air. It looks pretty aerodynamic, and I've got to say, they're pretty tough pods. So let's put that on the scales, find out if it's any lighter than before. So the other one was 91 grams, I think, if memory serves me correctly. 98 grams. So up to you if you like that sort of style. But one part that I thought was double interesting, check this out. If you're going to build something pretty crazy, you've got these little options right here. So this is like a little VTX sort of guard. What you could do with this bad boy, I suppose, put this on here. That part's going to be for your antenna. We've got our camera mount at the front right here, and then I sort of need to hold this, otherwise it's not gonna stand up. Then all we do, put this little part on the top, this little cage. Can you imagine if you built in that? That thing is absolutely tiny, a really small profile, and if we put that on, there we go, it's sort of holding together like that. If we put that on the scales, let's find out how much is this going to weigh. I've got to tear my scales off. There we go. So you can drop some weight like that down to 82 grams. So I think what I really like about this one is the low profile look, and I think if you whipped a quad out like this, you had some super all-in-one components in the middle or something like that, you would have an absolute rocket. Now that's all well and good, Stuart. I can hear you talking about the TPU, but I really want to see what it looks like in a build. So what we're going to do, we're going to cut over to what it looks like. We've got a build all set up, so let's check out what it looks like, and with the magic of editing in 3, 2, 1, rightio. So look at this beauty right here. Look how nice those components go together. I'm not sure about the color theme because look, it's pretty far out. It looks pretty crazy, and the first thing I'm thinking, like, this would be a nightmare to print. I don't know too much about 3D printing, not the strength or anything like that, but all those different colors in this top pod looks absolutely crazy. But I've got a fully tricked out version right here looking very, very pretty. So I'm going to flash some pictures on the screen here, but talking about those clean builds, you can see if you put the right things in here, this thing actually has a split. So it's a very, very compact considering we've got a split in here. We've got an all-in-one in the middle. We've got a run cam split camera at the front, and you can see this sort of part, this is my favorite pod design. If we were going to have a hard impact or anything like that, say you landed upside down, I'm all about camera protection. This thing, it's got enough sponge that it's going to absorb the impact, but it's not going to be going all the way in and damaging your components, which is exactly what we want. We want it to be flexible enough that it's not going to break, but strong enough that it's going to resist the impact. Now, if you've watched my reviews, you know I bang on all the time about camera protection. This one, it's getting pretty close. What I probably would like with this pod is if there was just an extra ring that went around the outside, it was printed out a little bit more, so if you were going to have a sort of impact, it was just out of view of the FPV camera, but maybe around here, yeah, just a thicker ring of plastic that would protect it, maybe from a flag or something like this. This is getting pretty close. I still don't think that camera protection's perfect, but it is significantly better than what we've seen in the past. Things like the Copus or the GT2 where the camera's hanging out the front, that's just asking for it. At least this thing, I feel like it's got a fighting chance in a crash. Now, like I keep talking about, there's so many different versions of this frame, really tailored to how people want them. This one's even lighter still. If you look underneath here, you can see we've actually got some cutouts which weren't in this frame here. This is the frame that I'm giving away, but there's actually some big cutouts here to reduce a little bit of weight. You can get these little protectors on the outside if you're worried about your motors, because this one does have some serious motors on here. This has got some F43s. I think this thing is going to be an absolute rocket, and I'm pretty happy that it's got a split, so we should be able to get some great HD action that's still rocking around without needing to carry a GoPro or anything like that. Now let's move in, talk about the design of the thing. I think think overall, look, it's a 5-inch base plate. There's not too much you can say about there. It seems pretty sturdy. I like the size of it. I like the shape of it. But what I do think is good, a good design choice, is how they've got so many different options regardless of how you want to build. They've got so many different ways that you can put your quad together. So I think that's a really good design choice. My favorite part, I guess, would be this pod right here. This one with the sort of little bit of flex in there. I think that's going to save a lot of our components. So really a big fan of that. Quality, I know Atmospheric Adventures, they've been around for a little bit in the hobby. They make some fantastic stuff, you know, like Nurk FPV with his Kratos and all that sort of stuff. They've done a lot of work in the past. They really stand by their pilots, and I think they've done a great job here as well. So everything on this frame, I think, is quality. The prints are nice, the carbon feels nice, doesn't feel flexy at all, and I don't know if they've got a bind and fly. Go and check out their website, but the build quality in this one looks really good as well. Alrighty, so let's move into the pros and the cons, and I think one that I'm going to put out there, the pros or the cons, some people are going to absolutely love the look of this frame, and some people are going to think it's super ugly. It sort of reminds me of some of those like cars out of the Fast and the Furious and stuff. Some of them are so obnoxious and in your face and look totally crazy. Some people love it, and some people prefer more of a classic style. And this one, it's definitely going to turn some heads, whether you love it or some hate it. Drop those comments down below. What do you think about what this thing looks like? But it is a very interesting looking quad. Now, like I mentioned, you know, that my favorite pro is just how it protects your components. I think it does a really good job there, and if you're worried about protecting your ESCs and all that sort of jazz, they've pretty much got you covered for regardless of all your components. Whether you want to protect your motors with some extra bumpers, whether you've got ESC covers, all that sort of jazz, you've got TPU mounts galore coming out the wazoo. Now, moving on to the cons, look, probably the only one I can think of, I'm not going to say camera protection because I'm pretty happy with that. It's not perfect, but you know, it's so much better than what I'm really used to. Probably the cons is how much it weighs. So it's not the heaviest quad, but it's also not the lightest quad as well. So if I stick that on my scales right there, it's coming in at about 355 grams. So look, it's not the lightest. I still think it's going to absolutely zip around, but it's not going to be anywhere near comparable to something like the Devil Avant or anything like that. But I don't think it's designed to be as well. This thing should be a lot more robust. Alrighty, so there it is. There's my review of the Aeolus. How do you say that? There's my review of this bad boy right here, and overall, look, I think for a racing drone, the one part that I really like when it's in this mount in the TPU configuration, I think that's going to protect your camera and protect your components strong enough that it's not going to break them, but also, you know, flexible enough that it's not going to snap the rest of it. So I'm a big fan of that. I think this thing should absolutely rip, so definitely stay tuned for part 2 because, you know, it's got some pretty serious motors on here. We'll take it out to the field, hit it with Speed Gun Sally, see what Crash Test Cal says, and also Grumpy Trev. We'll have a fly around and see how this bad boy goes. Subscribe for more FPV related content. Drop some comments down below as well. What do you think about this thing? Is it your cup of tea, or is it too much to look at for you? And subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying. Also too, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that bell icon because I'm putting out like 6, sometimes 7 videos a week, sometimes, yeah, a video a day. So make sure you hit that bell icon so you're not going to miss any of them. Anyway, happy flying.